from Collector's Maze, and we are here today with Master Daniel Pesina of Mortal Kombat and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fame. So I want to welcome you and thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, yeah, thanks for your time and thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Our pleasure. Our fans, your fans, our followers definitely know you from Mortal Kombat. And all of your characters. Let me see. Johnny Cage. Sub-Zero, Scorpion.
Reptile.
Reptile. There's two more.
Smoke and Noob Saibot.
Yes. Excellent. Okay. But I was looking and I was thinking, you came into movies and videos somewhere in your 30s, I believe?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you brought your martial arts experience and background with you. So I don't know the story about how you started in martial arts.
Yeah. Actually, I started in martial arts about 1968, 69, somewhere in there. So I was really, really young. And at that time, you know, on Sundays, there used to be a show called Charlie Chan the Detective, where this Chinese detective would solve mysteries.
Yes.
And one time during it, I seen, Charlie Chan throw this big rough guy over with a judo throw. And I was just like, holy cow, because he's always portrayed as really, really smart. And he's not really physically fit. He's short and he's round.
Yes.
And anyway, so I was just amazed by that. And then I would always watch it with my father. And my father served with the U.S. military during the Korean conflict.
Wow.
So he was like, oh, I could teach you that throw. And for some reason, he remembered that throw during his basic training. So my father actually taught me at my first throw. And then I wanted to learn really, really more. And two things. I think one, my father was just like, I don't remember that much. And two, my father let me throw him. So I think at his age, he didn't really want to get thrown around too much or pretend to fall, you know. So he was just like, oh, I don't remember more. So I just kept bugging him for years until finally one day he was like, you know what? I'm going to take this guy for some martial art lessons and see how he does. So, and that's how I got started with martial arts.
So what was the form of martial arts that you started with first?
It would be judo, Shotokan judo.
Okay,
and they'd also let me do a little bit of Shotokan karate and later on some Shotokan jujitsu. But it's funny, at that time they wouldn't teach jujitsu until you were 17. Until you were 17 years old. Yeah, it was just more geared for, even then, there were no really real kids class. Like I think I was like 9 at the time when I started, and there was only teenage class, 13.
Wow.
But at the school that my dad took me to, the guy was like, him and the instructor were just talking. And I guess because the guy was in the military and my dad was in the military, there's kind of like a mutual brotherhood. And he was like, yeah, let's throw him in and see how he does. So here's a 9-year-old with a bunch of 13, 14, 15-year-olds. But, you know, I have 2 older brothers who used to pick on me and beat me up, so I could take a beating. So
you can handle yourself in that class.
Yeah.
And so then, okay, so you were trained there, and then did you continue then to learn different styles of martial arts, because it seems like you have a lot of experience with a lot of different forms?
Yeah, one of the things about martial arts is you learn as a group, but it's really individual. You do it as an individual, even though sometimes you either randuri at the time, like with judo throwing, or spar a little bit with other people. There's a lot of times that you just do solo practice. So my brothers are like I am much younger than my older brothers. So I was always playing, you know, with a neighbor friend of mine or by myself, because they didn't want to play with me really, because I'm like a little, you know, I'm a little kid compared to them. They got, you know, they have high school and grammar school things to do. So that being said, I just threw myself into martial arts, and I learned to take at that age, like I remember at the age of 11, taking a bus to class and taking a bus home from class at the age of 11.
You were
And
a
it was just a
serious
short
student.
bus ride. Yeah, it was just a short bus ride, one bus, but it was literally, I loved it that much that I did that. So finally that school closed. They closed down that school, and my father was like, man, seems like it does really good for him. I'll look for another school. So my dad found a school in Chinatown, and this taught Chinese martial arts, Kung Fu. A very famous master, Wei Lun Choi. He actually he taught some of Bruce Lee's students later on when Bruce Lee passed,
cool.
and they were looking for instructors. So I got lucky, and I trained with this guy for about 2 or 3 years, and I just kept, wherever I could learn martial arts, I would just go and try to learn martial arts.
That is amazing. And so how many styles would you say you're proficient in?
Man, I am proficient in at least 8, and I learned. I was promoted to master, actually in not really as like a certificate, but like an old school master. When I was studying in China one time, one of the older instructors looked at me, and he was like, "Oh, this guy has." They call it the connection. The translator translated me like, "You're connected. You have a mind-body connection.
Yeah.
Your body is running these techniques. You've learned these techniques so many times, and your body is running them as efficiently as you can, and not just 1 or 2 techniques, but you're kind of putting it together. So it's more like a laser beam than a bullet. A bullet
goes not
single.
Mechanical. It's intuitive.
Yeah, yeah. So they were like, "Oh, you're on master level. You've reached master level." So, so the styles that I did learn to their complete, even though I don't know them, even though I do know them completely, that's not why I have the title master. I have the title master because I have that mind-body connection.
Nice.
So that's being said, I kept studying whatever styles I could get my hands on, like through my whole life. Even, last time I did study was my last master was in 2000, and he died in 2007, close to 90. Wow. But if I get a chance to study with somebody who I think it has something to offer, I'll just go and study with them.
Now, has that taken you around the world then? Because you mentioned China.
That's more, I'm more into the Chinese martial arts, though I did study with a couple of Japanese instructors, or if there's as I said, if there's a seminar, and I'm like, oh yeah, let me go try that, or things like that. But travel has only taken me as far as like to China, and Japan shortly, because it's at that time you had to fly into Japan to get to China.
So, but hold it. Mortal Kombat, you said, is based on Japanese ninjas, right? Isn't it Japanese style?
Mortal Kombat originally the ninjas were going to be Japanese style. Oh. But my friend who invited me, asked me for my help and invited me on the project. It was going to be a low budget project. So he was just like, hey, I can't pay you a lot. He goes, one thing is, whatever ideas you want in the game, I'll put in the game. Okay. And so our agreement at that time was to change the Japanese ninjas into the Chinese Lin Kuei ninja. Okay. So that's why they look different than Japanese ninjas. Okay. Japanese ninjas have just a whole black uniform, right, while Chinese ninja actually have light armor. Okay. So whenever you see those ninjas, that's he had to change them into that. To have that. So when we created the game, there was only going to be one Lin Kuei, which would be Scorpion. People know him as Scorpion, and later on it changed into 2. And when we created them, they were brothers. So not till later on when they tried to, after we were done making the game, they tried to expand the ideas and make them into, expand the story, because originally we didn't really have. We created this light story while we were filming the game, filming the movements and creating the movements of the game.
So, so you mentioned your brothers. So, I'm familiar with Carlos. Now, is
Great. Yeah.
Carlos younger than you, though?
Yeah. Carlos is like this. Carlos is 8 years younger than I. And
Okay.
my older brother is 8 years older than
Oh, oh, wow. Oh, so
yeah.
that's a
So
huge
yeah,
gap.
and then we have one brother, and then there's a brother in between my oldest brother and me, and he's 6 years older than I. So,
Wow.
in our family, we're considered the accidents.
Well, okay, okay, but so, but you and Carlos, you collaborate a lot on projects, and
When we actually, when we were doing Mortal Kombat, uh, uh, because I trained my brother and I trained the guy who played Kano.
okay,
So those are both like my students.
okay,
So the whole thing was John Tobias, the main creator of Mortal Kombat, John Tobias, was like, hey, who can we get to help me with this project for cheap? Because I can't pay them a lot. So I
so
was
I
like,
can bring my
naturally, Carlos and Rich would come in because they were more John's friends than me. I hung around John a few times and went to movies and stuff like that. Went to arcades with them a little bit, but Carlos and Rich and John were closer. So I was just like, oh, I know, I have a friend, Ho Sung. And then John is just like knew Ho Sung because, we all kind of knew each other, hung out, met each other because it's just, people hanging out. And he was like, oh, but he was a turtle. We can't afford him. And I was like, no, don't worry about him. If I ask Ho, short for Ho Sung, if I ask Ho, he'll do me a favor and he'll help us on this project so we can get it done. And he's like,
nice.
oh, and he's like, who else? And I was like, I could get, Tony Marquez. And then, and originally this guy, Tony, was going to be the Lin Kuei, but he broke his toe the day before filming. And then I had to, and because of time constraints and because I was creating the moves for the physical moves for the game, it was just easier if I stepped in rather than getting somebody else. But anyway, that's kind of a different story. But anyway, Tony later on would become Kung Lao. And then
Okay,
later
so
on,
he's still in there. Okay,
yeah, and then later on he would be Leonardo from
oh, great,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
nice.
So we were still all the group, and I was like, yeah, and if we need anybody else, I could ask for favors and dig people up to get this project going.
So
So that's how this whole group got started.
okay, and so Carlos actually is in martial arts because of you, and you trained him.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's yours. Okay, nice. And so then, do you guys have anything coming up that you're collaborating on together at all?
No, actually, he works for Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers, yeah.
Yeah, he works for Warner Brothers and works for them. And because I am not in good terms with Warner Brothers, yeah, they always kind of, they have their. Again, this is coming from me. In my opinion, I don't work for Warner Brothers, but originally, when I did this work for Midway, we were only going to do 200 arcade cabinets. And then when they came out with more arcade cabinets, I was promised that I was going to get a bonus on my work. And then when it was going to home, I was promised to get a bonus on that. And in the end, I didn't receive any of that money. And so then Midway sold it to Warner Brothers and really didn't realize that Midway really had these a lot of unsettled business.
Right.
They weren't kind of forthright with it. So now Warner Brothers is in a situation where they're like, what? There's somebody else who helped create this game. They're kind of caught like that.
Okay.
So and being a big company, in my opinion, they're more like they're more like they want to, because they are bigger and have deeper pockets. They more want to shut you down rather than come to meet you hand to hand.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
So we don't collaborate really on anything like that.
Okay. So then, did you do anything else for Midway? I know the games. Did you do any other consulting or anything with them?
No. After the second game, when I realized I was getting paid, I walked away from that whole industry.
And then the Mortal Kombat changed from then.
Yeah. Then they came out with 3, and I think 3 failed. So they came out with and they tried to recreate everything or kind of get everything kind of like do that.
Right.
So, yeah.
I have some fan questions as well, so I'm going to throw these.
Get over here.
Yeah. Which is your favorite Mortal Kombat? One or two, basically, I'm guessing. Is
My favorite one is one because it is one. It's the creation of Mortal Kombat.
yeah.
Oh, it is. Two is cool. It has better graphics. It has more things. But number one had so many. We had so many ideas that once in a while I still see them coming out. Like in number one, we wanted X-rays. We wanted tag teams. We wanted uh, three fatalities. Each character having three fatalities. We wanted all this stuff in number one, but we didn't have the budget nor the technology to do it.
Right.
So
Right.
then when two came out, which looks better, it's originally kind of what we thought number one would look like, but
Yeah.
the budget grew so we could do more stuff.
Nice.
So yeah,
So,
number one is my favorite.
and then what is your favorite Mortal Kombat character?
My favorite character is, even though I had a big hand in doing the Lin Kuei, Scorpion, and Sub-Zero, changing the way they look and doing and making them, giving them their moves. I gave Scorpion his signature weapon, the rope dart. But anyway, I really like Johnny Cage just because he's the father. He was the first one that we made the whole game with.
Right.
Originally, yeah, John and I spent about 6 8-hour days in the studio looking, filming everything, looking over stuff, and then because the budget was so low, we erased that stuff and would film over more stuff over it because we didn't want to waste money on tapes. So the original, like 60, about between 40 and 60 hours of Mortal Kombat is lost forever. We taped over that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so it was like physics. It was a big challenge because again, we didn't know what we were doing. So we would our first day, John was like, okay, do something cool. So I started doing movements and stuff like that. And then he looked at it and he's like, okay, we got to get organized. Like, let's do everything to the head. So I would do all these techniques and then and we did that for the first couple of days, even before we started, we wanted to see what would work for the game. Yeah, for that. And we just kept on growing from that, trying to get a way to make the game until we started actually creating it.
You did all these different characters. So how did you work on making them unique? I know. I mean, how did that come about? I guess is it a different style? Is it? I mean, just the different weapons, the different range.
Different movements. I tried to, like with Johnny Cage, and two, I didn't know that I was going to be the Lin Kuei, the Scorpion and Sub-Zero at that time. We were shooting Johnny Cage. So, and two, with Johnny Cage, he was the first one. So there was no other, we weren't really worried about any of the other characters because we didn't even have one. So a lot of stuff that, it was just creating like this outline, not only the outline, but different techniques that other characters could use.
Right.
So when I was doing that, I wasn't really worried about like, I was just like, John was like, okay, you're a Hollywood actor, martial artist guy at that time when we started actually doing, filming it. And then later on, after a while, one of the guys really liked Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's like, do some Jean-Claude Van Damme moves. So we put some in, but that character is really not based on Jean-Claude Van Damme. The company will tell you yes, but me being there would tell you that that's quite not correct.
Okay.
Kind of correct, but not quite correct. So Johnny Cage is really close because he's the father of all the characters. Okay. Everything. He really, he broke the ground with it. And then when I was shooting the Lin Kuei, I was like, these guys are supposed to be brothers, but they have to be different. So I tried to create subtleties in their techniques when they're doing stuff, just so, because if they're brothers and they study under the same master, they're going to be very similar.
Right.
But I was like, little nuances to try to make it look a little different.
Nice.
That was a little tricky part.
Nice. Well, I would imagine because it's you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you got to make yourself look
And
different,
you gotta
just a little
make
different.
yourself do things differently. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little different because you can't go off course because of the technology we were using, the 2D.
Mm.
If it was too drastic, it wouldn't read right. You
Right.
wouldn't
Right.
appreciate
Yeah. It
stuff.
wouldn't translate into the
Yeah.
technology. Yeah. You mentioned one injury, but another question from a fan is, were there any other injuries in creating MK or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Um, Man, there was on the set of Turtles, there was a few injuries, probably more than a few injuries, I would say, uh, but two, it was the industry was different, like because of the CG was very limited. So when here's an example, when you're watching Turtles 1 and 2, you will see us the guys in the background are always moving around because the guy in the turtle suit can't see what they're doing. So our job is when they throw a technique, we got to not be caught flat foot and go into the kick.
Oh, oh.
So it looks like it's funny, but it's so we can get a jump start. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
can see, and two, you have to be a martial artist to see what technique is going to be thrown, kind of to do that.
Right, right.
So the industry is a little more sophisticated as far as that's concerned, like doing stunts. So there was quite a lot of injuries
Oh, wow.
on it. But again, you're a martial artist, so a lot of times, a lot of the guys didn't complain. They'd get off, brush it off, and would continue.
Good. Okay, so nothing prohibitive.
Right, nothing prohibitive. And then in Mortal Kombat, I would say not real injuries, but when we bought the costume for the Lin Kuei, we bought it for Tony Marquez. So Tony Marquez is thin.
Yes.
So too, when John and I went to buy the costume, we thought it would be better. It was cheaper to buy a kid's extra large than an adult small. So we were just goofing around saying, let Tony deal with it. So we bought this small costume for Tony, and then I wound up wearing it. Well,
Oh.
I am stockier than him. And
Oh.
during the creation, it would rip. And naturally, it being a studio, we were unprepared, and we didn't have any safety pins. So we would put straight pins for the rips.
Oh.
So a lot of times I was getting poked and stuff while
Yes.
movement. Yeah. So, but but it's part of what it is.
All for MK. Good.
Yeah, definitely a game from the heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen that in this interview, obviously, and in many other interviews that you've done. You just really do have a passion as a person who is right there in the creation process. So
Right.
so when I pull out my little Sega Genesis and I do my Mortal Kombat competition on New Year's Day.
Yay!
Yes. So I did have another fan question come in while we were talking.
Okay.
So that was a little message there. They know that you enjoy playing video games yourself and want to know what kinds of video games you enjoy.
Yeah, I like the first-person shooter games. Like, I really love Doom. Doom is one of my favorite. I used to play a lot of Halo, Call of Duty, Resident Evil.
A lot of shoot 'em up games.
Yeah, I like. Those are really good. Lately, I haven't been playing as much because before the pandemic, I was doing a lot of events, leaving here in the States, down in South America, overseas, doing events. So that didn't, I had to let that gaming part go. But on my phone, I have a couple of games, simple games, that I play when I have downtime.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. And
yeah,
then
I am really a geek.
And yes, and so kindred with all of our fans.
Yeah, my brother turned me on to comic books at a very early age. He had rheumatoid arthritis, and I was really young, like 4 or 5, and he was in the hospital for a long period of time. So his friends would bring him books, including comic books to read.
That's awesome.
And so when I would go visit him in that, he was like, hey, I'm done reading these comics. Do you want to take them? And so I had this, I would just take them home and read them. And so I had this, like, even though that, it was sad to see him in the hospital, I look forward to going and seeing him because he would usually have a stack full of comics for me
That's fantastic. Now, which brother is this?
This is my oldest brother, Ruben.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. I guess another question, what has kept you busy for the last few years? I mean, I've seen you online. I know what you're doing, but can you explain that to your fans?
Yeah, my real love has always been martial arts. So I've always just dove in deep with the martial arts, trying to, not only practice, just explore it, try to teach, to share it with people. It's a passion of mine, and I like to see other people, even if they do it casually, I still like to see them do it. And I even in I always tell people, even if the movie is bad, I will pay to go see a martial art movie. Like if it's on pay-per-view or anything like that, I'll pay for it. I got to support the martial arts, even if it doesn't look like it's going to be good. I will still do that because it's such a passion.
Some horrible martial arts movie.
And it was really, really bad. I was really, no offense, but when Iron Fist came out, I was really, really disappointed. I was just kind of like, because again, with Mortal Kombat, we pulled a lot from the Iron Fist comic book.
Right.
Yeah, as far as like, that's where, we got Power Man started. That's where Shang-Chi, master of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, the way Ho Sung, in the second game, he looks exactly like Shang-Chi, master of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. Yeah.
Yeah, so that could be a little bit disheartening. But but in this time right now, I know you're doing a lot of instruction. You're doing a lot of instruction online. Then is that? Yeah.
Right now, just resurfacing. Usually, I like more hands-on stuff because of this pandemic. Too, it really made people think and view what they're doing. And I think it's, for me, it's working out better because I'm kind of like, I could spread it wider and more people can learn little things, or if they have a question or something like that, or, I'm presently writing a book about some of the esoterical or mysteries of the Kung Fu, or where people might think they get the idea of different things that are in the martial art, such as how doing iron palm. The easiest one to explain is iron palm. A lot of people like iron palm. You hit the bag and your hand becomes like iron, like steel. And actually, me writing it and realizing stuff, writing a book about this or a certain thing made me realize that your hand really becomes probably not for the best, like iron, because you're hitting this iron bag, and over time, all the iron turns to rust. So when you're hitting this thing, your pores are open of your hands, and your hand is absorbing some portion of iron. It's probably really not good for you. But I think that too makes your hand harder because you've absorbed these small iron particles. Particles of iron. So your hand is really a piece of iron.
Okay.
So a lot of people probably don't realize that.
So you're writing a book.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm writing a book about, like I said, about the these esoterical or these mysteries. Only because too, I'm writing it also about my experience in Mortal Kombat. Now, like the creation and the stories we have, because a lot of the there's not a lot of stories about the making, and there is a lot of stories that went into when we were making the game. There's a lot of hilarious things going on, or how we came up with different ideas, or and
I've seen some of the little video clips on the
like everybody loves the phrase "get over here," and not everyone realizes that Rich DeVizio, the guy who was Kano, actually came up with that line, with like "get over here." like that. So he doesn't, he didn't. So people should know that. I think where it
Right,
really
right.
comes
Oh,
from.
absolutely.
Where it really comes from, or things like that.
I'd have to ask you, you mentioned the book, and I know that you're instructing. I know that right now you're doing a lot of online. I know that you do some con events. So is there anything else that you haven't explored in your career that you want to?
I would like to do another retro game for me personally. I had ideas of what the physical part of Mortal Kombat 3 would be. Again, because John Tobias is the one who came up with originally the story. He came up with the characters, and he had the main. He was the lead in both Mortal Kombat 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But he for the betterment of the project, he always, as far as physical movement and special moves or stuff like that, he always was like, Danny, what do you think? What do you want to do? He would always ask me that. So I had some ideas for what 3 should have looked like, and I know when I look at the game right now, it's the same thing as 25, 28 years ago. That part hasn't changed. Everything else has changed except for that. So right. I think that 2D fighting game with live people, but having something that I think grew out of it would be pretty cool to do. So I'm trying to pursue that.
So we'll look forward to that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we should be looking at? Projects that you're coming out with anytime in the near future?
Just that again. Just buckling down, making sure that people can learn some stuff online. Not that you'll be able to study it deeply, or just take a look at different things, different martial arts. Because I know that in these contemporary times, traditional martial arts is like it really has gone. A lot of people don't really know it or see it ineffectively when really it's very, very effective, but not under a sport contained venue.
There's not other venues necessarily to see it in unless you're doing it in something like a movie or
if you're competing against it, because people think it's like, oh, it's impractical, but they forget for 2,000 years it was pretty practical. And that's a long time.
Absolutely.
yeah, to be practical, thinking that no, it's just that the times have changed it.
Yes. Well, yes, and then there's these times when we can't go to con events and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Yeah.
Though right now somebody did email me, and they're having a con in Tennessee on October 2nd and 3rd.
Wow.
So yeah, they're like, hey, it's our first con, but we still want to have it. Are you interested? And I was just like, well, send me more details and see, what, if. It's in October. It's a ways off, but hopefully
I know it's really hard to determine right now the timeline for things. Yeah, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But we hope to see you again in cons when we can all be together again. So Tennessee, that would be awesome. But until then, I just want to thank you from our fans and our followers, your fans, for being here with Collector's Maze, and I just have learned a great deal more than I was familiar with, and I'm looking forward to your book.
Okay.
Do you have a title already?
Fist of Heaven.
Fist of Heaven.
Yeah. Just because a lot of martial arts is associated with this mysticism and spirituality and stuff like that, and two, it's going to address some of that of why, in my opinion, in my experience. Why and how it came to be known as that.
And do you have an idea about when that might be coming out?
Hopefully soon. I have a new respect for writers because writing is really difficult.
Yes.
So I'm hoping by the end of summer to have it all done, all finished.
Fantastic.
So
awesome. Well, that's something
about martial arts and a little bit about Mortal Kombat.
That'll be something we'll definitely promote. I thank you so much, Daniel.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for everybody. Stay stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, whatever it takes to keep each other safe.
Stay safe. Absolutely.